Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Truth Uncensored. I am Josh Cook, and this is the podcast where bold conversations meet Christ-centered truth. And boy, have we got a great show for you tonight. Today, I'm joined by my good friend, Corbin Brown. Corbin, welcome to Truth Uncensored.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so for those of the audience that don't know you personally, go ahead and just explain to the audience who you are, a little bit about your background, what you're up to these days, what your religion is, what your view on politics is, and what your view of the LGBTQ community is.
Yeah, so that is a lot of questions, oh boy. So I am a CMA major here at ORU. I am a freshman. I like playing guitar, juggling, Rubik's Cubing, a bunch of random stuff like that. I do voice impressions, and I was actually an AGT auditionist. I didn't get on the show, but I was really close.
That's awesome.
And then my religion is probably... the word is escaping me. I grew up in a Foursquare background, if you're familiar with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I believe in the Holy Spirit. I believe in gifts of the Spirit. I believe that God still performs miracles today.
Absolutely.
As for the LGBTQ community and that agenda, my primary view is that we love the people, not the sin. So I love the people of the LGBTQ community. I, however, do not love the LGBTQ agenda.
Absolutely. And then what is your view on politics?
On politics, I do not know diddly squat. I really don't go into the news a lot. I didn't even know who, Jeff Epstein was until 2 weeks ago. My roommate was infuriated with me. He was like, how do you not know who that is? He thought I was living under a rock.
That's crazy.
I'm really not too big into politics. I'd identify as Republican, but I'm, maybe more in the middle, but I'd probably identify as Republican.
Yeah, absolutely. So when did you first start paying attention to cultural and societal issues such as LGBTQ and other things like that?
So it kind of all started when I wanted to decide what I wanted to do for my career and what my calling was, the purpose I was on this earth. And I remembered someone had told me, the thing that makes you the most infuriated about this earth is what you're here to fix. And that really spoke to me, and it got me thinking. I was like, well, what ticks me off more than anything else? And I was like, LGBTQ agendas in children's cartoons. Because me and my sister would be watching a show, we'd be really enjoying it. All of a sudden, lesbian couple takes over the entire show, and you're like, where the heck did this come from?
Yeah.
And then you gotta, and that really ticked me off. And I was like, I want to do something about that. So I decided to come here, get a degree in, getting a degree in cinema media arts, and my dream is to create, produce, direct, storyboard, voice act my own animated series that teaches Christian-based morals in a way that is not agendicizing, whether that be an LGBTQ agenda or a Christian agenda, just telling good stories.
That's awesome. I really admire that. So how would you describe your general views on the LGBTQ's place in animated cartoons? Do you think it should have any presence or none? And if you're in the middle, just explain what your views on what its place is. Because obviously, I think my thing is I don't agree with it either. But the majority of movie companies and studios and things that are making these types of cartoons, such as Disney and Netflix, most of those leaders are not Christian. They do not align with the values that we align with. And a lot of families who watch those shows, there might be a gay family, gay couple. So do you think it should have any place in those? And if so, what would you say your views are on that?
Yeah, so I think what it really comes down to is representation versus agendicizing. So even though I don't really support either, I tend to tolerate representation a little more because, let's say there's a kid out there watching Cartoon Network and his, he's got two dads and he sees a kid who's also in that position and he feels like he's more normal because it wasn't his decision. Yeah. That doesn't have anything to do with him. I tend to tolerate that a bit more, and I kind of, even though I don't support it, if it's speaking to the kid and it's letting the kid know, hey, you're okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
We see your position. I think that's a big difference than, hey, you should be gay.
Exactly. I think a perfect example of that, you mentioned Cartoon Network. I would go to Nickelodeon. Mm-hmm. Have you ever watched the show The Loud House?
The Loud House, yes.
So Clyde's two dads. I would say it's a perfect example of it didn't bother me as much because they weren't pushing the agenda on kids. They weren't encouraging it. They were just saying that's a character that has two dads.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And like I said, even though I don't support it, I tend to tolerate it a bit more. And it's actually funny you brought up Loud House because that was actually what I had in mind with that, because with Loud House, that was a topic in the show, and I was like, okay, like it's representation and it's not an agenda, so I'm going to keep watching it.
Exactly.
Because I tolerate that. However, when one of the kids came out as lesbian and started getting in their relationship with another young girl, I was like, no, okay, because that is now speaking to the children.
I get that,
these characters are cool. They came out as lesbian. You should be lesbian too.
Yeah.
And that's really what this all comes down to, is the sexualization of children.
Absolutely.
Because I've heard interviews with gay men being like, why is this crap in cartoons? Like,
exactly.
They don't need to know about it right now.
And it is, yeah, absolutely. All right, so now what we're going to do, before we get into our first topic, I do this with every guest. It's called Rapid Fire. So I'm basically just going to ask you a series of yes or no questions. And again, that's all I want is a yes or no answer. And we'll expand on some of these things. But just to kind of give the audience a baseline of what your general views are before we get into more deep discussions of the topics. So do you think culture is changing rapidly?
Yes.
Do you think that there is such thing as objective truth?
No. Objective or subjective? I get those mixed up.
Objective. So basically, do you think that there is a standard for truth that just it's truth, and no matter what anybody thinks or claims their truth is, they can't go against objective truth?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that people are more influenced or more informed?
Say more influenced.
I would agree. Does media, specifically in what we're talking about, cartoons and shows, do you think that those have one of the largest parts in shaping kids' beliefs?
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. You'd be so surprised how one cartoon being turned on while the mom is busy will influence the child. Because children are, they're sponges. They're absorb.
Impressionable.
They mimic. And so when there is an influence speaking into their life, whether the parent might think it's just a silly cartoon, it's still influencing them, right? Like, even a little kid might watch a show with dinosaurs and be like, I want to be a dinosaur, right? It's the same thing.
Absolutely.
If there's a show with someone who's LGBTQ, they're like, oh, I want to be LGBTQ.
Exactly. Especially when that's the main part of the show.
Especially.
Do you think kids are more influenced by media than their parents?
I think it depends. I think in a good parental setting, parents should be the number one influence. But I think in a lot of households, yes, media can be way more influential, especially with the amount of screen time that kids are on today. The whole iPad kid thing and just how much media kids are consuming in general. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Should kids' content be more neutral on topics such as LGBTQ, or do you think that they should get equal representation in kids' content?
That's a tough one. I think children's media's number one goal should be to inspire, not to influence.
Okay.
So, like, good story should provoke thoughts of, like, wow, I really connected with that redemptive story, or that, really spoke to me. Maybe this, not this. So that's what you should think.
Yeah. Do you think studios such as Disney, Netflix, Cartoon Network, Sony Animation, Marvel Animation, Nickelodeon, do you think do you think that they are pushing these messages on kids intentionally, or do you think it's just they're trying to have equal representation? Some people take it the wrong way.
Well, 2018 to 2024, really, yes, they were definitely pushing it. When did Trump get reelected?
He got first elected in 2016, got reelected in 2024.
Yeah, right, 2024. Yeah, like I said. So are you familiar with the movie Elio?
I think it came out, and for whatever reason, like I either didn't watch it or my mom didn't want me. I don't know what it was. I didn't watch it.
Exactly, because it was not publicized at all. You know why?
Why?
Because originally the kid was supposed to be trans, and it was going to be this whole agenda story, but Trump got reelected. They had to scrap the whole story.
Yeah.
The result was rushed, and so they still put it out there, but it wasn't advertised, like, barely at all. And so no one knows about it. Everyone's like, I forget.
Have you watched it?
No, because no one talks about it. And it was extremely mid because it set out to be something, and then it changed last minute. And anything that changes last minute from what it was originally supposed to be is going to be weak.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Should LGBTQ topics be discussed at all in children's shows and animation?
No. They just don't need to know. Like, they're kids. Like, talk to them about that when they're at an age that they need to know about that. It's the same thing. Like, you're not going to give sex ed to a 5-year-old. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't think they need to talk about that. Yeah.
Okay. would you say that in your current life right now, are you ever afraid to speak openly about something you believe for fear of backlash from people?
No, because I mean, I'm going to a Christian school. So right now I'm in this right now I'm in this bubble of, most 99% of people agree with me on most things.
Yeah.
And so I'm not afraid now. However, when I go into my calling and that area, let's say I was working for Disney, Netflix, whatever, I would be more scared. But thank God that through all things, Christ
Amen, brother.
strengthens me. So,
Do you believe cancel culture is real?
oh yeah, people love to just be ill-informed and angry. And those two things combine, and I think that's really what's fueling cancel culture. I mean,
Absolutely.
people love to get behind things that they just don't know a lot about and just hop on the bandwagon of being
Bro.
angry.
Do you think that people should feel an obligation to censor themselves if what they are going to say could possibly offend somebody?
Do they have an obligation?
Yeah. Should people have an obligation to and a want to self-censor themselves to save, essentially, to be aware of the feelings? So it's basically, if I was in a public forum, if I was in a circle of 50 people, I don't know what any of these people believe. Should I be constantly self-conscious, self-censoring, making sure nothing I say could possibly offend anybody?
I think there's such a thing as knowing your audience. Just because I have free speech doesn't mean that I should say everything that comes to mind.
I would agree with that.
So, for example, if I were in a group of, let's say, gay people, and I said something like being gay is a sin, I wouldn't say that, because that's essentially saying you are a sin because they identify as gay. They're saying, oh, I'm a sin. So in that scenario that I just made up, I would, make a good impression on them. I would love the person. And, I think you should read the room, regulate yourself. Don't be afraid to say what you want to say, but make sure it's in an appropriate setting and make sure that you work up to it.
So I would just ask you a question on that from a biblical standpoint, from a Christ-following perspective, because you would identify as a Christ follower, so would I. So would you say that based on the Bible, based on what Jesus did, what he preached, and what we are called to do, wouldn't you say that we have an obligation, especially in a scenario like that? That's a perfect area to be able to witness to somebody and say, hey, I love you as a person, and I understand where you're at right now. But in the end, there's only one God, there's one King, and he is coming back someday. And if you are living like this, unrepented, there will be serious consequences for this. I feel like because the Bible says if you have a chance to tell somebody or steer somebody away from wrongdoing and you don't do it, then your blood is on their hands if they go to hell. So do you think that we have an obligation as Christians to witness to that person and tell them that the way they're living is wrong, or do you think that we should just try to be acceptive of everybody?
Well, and you got to remember, people don't save people. God saves people.
True.
Through people. So
through people, yes.
I don't think the blood would be on your hands if you missed that opportunity, because you got to trust that God knows what he's doing and he doesn't need you to save people.
True, but it's like, I'll give you an example. This is an example that my pastor is using and other pastors have used. So if you're in a small group, okay, you might be leading a small group at a church, and there's somebody that is there, he's LGBTQ. So we're sitting in this circle. He's like, hey, I'm gay. I'm currently living like this. And you have a discussion. If that entire time, you can do it as lovingly as you want, you can choose to use whatever words you want, you can use scripture, but if you choose to never acknowledge that it's a sin, never acknowledge it's something that needs to be repented of, and not give him that message, and then he leaves then and dies in a car accident on his way home. I mean, I don't have the verses pulled up in front of me, but there are verses in the Bible that say if you have the opportunity to witness somebody, or like if you know somebody's going to rob a bank, if your friend tells you they're going to go and rob a bank and you don't call the police and they get caught and the police find out that you knew about it, it's conspiracy to commit that crime even though you weren't even there. So the Bible does say that people's the blood could possibly be on your hands if you purposely don't use opportunities that God gives you to witness to people.
Where does it say that? I'm curious.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Let me look at. Actually, let's do that right now, because it.
Love your hoodie, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I picked this. So obviously, you guys know. You guys have read the thumbnail. Y'all read the title, looked at the thumbnail. So we were talking about LGBTQ primarily in kids cartoons. So it says "Promise, not pride." It has Noah's Ark in Genesis 9:13, which is one of many verses that condemns homosexuality in the Bible. Okay, let me pull this up on my.
He found a translation he didn't like.
Huh? No, not at all, actually. I'm serious.
I'm teasing.
Yeah. On my screen right now, it literally, stupid, I'm not sure if it's in my browser or not, but it gave me verses. But it basically summarizes them, but I don't want to read an AI summary. I want to read the actual verse.
Yeah.
So, It looks like it's primarily in the book of Ezekiel.
Okay.
One of the first passages they give is Ezekiel 3:18 through 21, which I'm reading from NIV,
Okay.
which it says, when I say I'll read this in full context. So this is Ezekiel's task as watchman. So there are two verses before that says, at the end of 7 days of the word, at the end of 7 days, the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, I have made you a watchman for the people of Israel. So hear the word I speak and give them a warning for me. And then this is when the verse starts. When I say to a wicked person, you will surely die, and you do not warn them or speak out to dissuade them from their evil ways in order to save their life, and that wicked person dies still in their sin, I will hold you accountable for their blood. So that is one verse. That is Ezekiel 3:18 to 21. And then the other one it gives is Ezekiel 33:4 through 6.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
So, do you agree that pastors are held to a higher standard as Christians?
I think that pastors are held to a higher standard spiritually,
Right.
but I don't think so. Like, for instance, people say that like pastors should dress a certain way, talk a certain way, they should avoid certain topics in their sermons. I don't agree with that. I think that pastors should cover things like abortion. Pastors say I don't want to get into politics. Well, in reality, a lot of what's in politics is biblical and God speaks on it. So I would say that they are held to a higher standard spiritually, but I would say that they are not held to a higher standard in like things that they do in general, as long as it's not against God.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So in the same way, do you think a prophet would be held to a higher spiritual standard as well?
Yeah. So yeah, and I know where you're going to get with that. You're going to say that he was a specific person.
He was a specific person that God selected to be a prophet. And so as a prophet, God told him, if you, Ezekiel, miss that opportunity, I will hold you accountable.
So this verse is talking about all of us. So this is Ezekiel 33:4 through 6. So it says, if anyone hears my words and does not heed to them, and the sword comes down and takes their life, their blood will be on their own head, since they heard my words but did not heed the warning. If they had heeded the warning, they would have saved himself. But if you, the watchman, so he's referring to us as Christians.
Still talking to Ezekiel, right?
He's not talking to Ezekiel specifically. He's saying, if you, the watchmen, plural.
Okay.
If you, the watchman, and it's using an analogy, it's using trumpet. So if you, the watchman, see the sword coming, which sees that, and do not blow the trumpet and warn people, which essentially is telling people about the word of God, and the sword comes down and takes that person's life, essentially meaning that they die while still in their sin, that person's life will be taken because of their sin, and they will be held accountable in judgment. But I will hold the watchman accountable for their blood as well. So I feel like in that verse, so yes, in the beginning he was talking to Ezekiel in the early chapters, but I think here he's just talking to us as Christians. We are called to evangelize the world. We are called to be apostles. We are called to, our number one calling on this earth, aside from whatever career we do, should be to lead people to the gospel. And obviously we can't get to everybody. We're not just going to walk up to random strangers. Not everybody does that. But in the scenario you gave, and this is not condemnation at all, I completely understand. I'm just asking a question of like, if you have a very good opportunity in like the situation you gave, and you're purposely choosing not to say something because you don't want to offend that person, wouldn't you rather offend that person and maybe get them thinking and give them the chance to, where if you don't say something, you just kind of affirm them what they're doing, then if they go out and die, like, that's my thing.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with that. I think the only thing that I would say is, I think just to live your life as a living example of truth. Mm-hmm. And yeah, definitely.
That's why I started this podcast.
Yeah, if you have an opportunity to minister to someone, do it. But I think the only thing I'm saying is, if circumstances out of your control arise and someone were to pass away and you had the chance but you didn't for whatever reason, I think God would have grace for you. I was at an event the other day. It was a fantastic event. It was a screening of a new episode of the Wing Feather Saga. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the producer was there, and at the end of the show, they had credits of everyone who had donated to them.
Yeah.
Some people donated more than others, but are they all in the credits equally? Yes.
Yes.
So I would say, yes, people are going to, do more for the kingdom, but it's still all dirty rags in his sight, It's all, it's like a little kid goes up to their dad and they're like, hey, Dad, can I have $5? And then with those $5, they buy him a present. Yeah. He appreciates it as a good father, but it's his money.
So I agree with that, and I think I can use a similar example to when it comes to like what I do, podcasts, live streaming, social medias. Do you know what super chats are?
No.
Okay. So a super chat is basically you make a donation. It can be as low as $1 and as high as whatever you want. So anybody can comment in that live chat. Anybody can make a comment, but they have a thing where like if you send a super chat, it doesn't matter what the amount is. It could be $1, it could be $100. We'll have a time where we read as many super chats as we can. So if you donate money, so they're gonna read the super chats from the people that donate $1 and $5. They're also going to read the ones that donate $150, $200. But it's the value to them. So while they're going to thank everybody's going to get recognition, and they appreciate all the money. They're going to have a higher value for that 200 than they're going to have for the 5.
But are they all subscribed?
Huh?
Are they all subscribed?
Exactly. So that's the difference. So
they get the same content, right?
Yeah.
They all get the same content.
Unless
I think we're all going to get the same treatment.
Yeah.
Some might be recognized more.
Exactly. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, but you said status, so that would suggest that.
Yeah. The word I don't know. Yeah. The word status is yeah. Let's move on to the next. Okay, so I feel like I'm gonna skip the rest of the rapid fire questions because I feel like we kind of got everything. So before we get into the first segment, just a little like hook before we start. Do you think that media is shaping culture, or do you think it's just reflecting it?
See, that's another blanket statement of media as a whole. I think so.
Well, I mean, you can take it specifically. Do you think that animation and kids media is shaping the kids culture, or do you think it's just reflecting what the kids are already seeing in the culture around them?
It depends on the show. I mean, you take a show like Peppa Pig, it's reflecting. It's kind of just more of the same of what the kid already knows is to be true.
Yeah.
If you take something like Bluey, it's shaping. It's saying, let me provoke a kid's mind to think about these things.
Yeah.
And also the parents, I mean, it's shaping good parenting as well. So I think it depends on the media. I think media done well should shape. And I think when there's an agenda involved, it's less sculpting and more hammering, like pounding something into place in someone's brain instead of suggesting it. So yeah, I think certain media shapes, certain media reflects.
Okay.
Just depends.
So then I have one more question. So again, the first segment was supposed to be on LGBTQ in general. But I think we've already covered that for the most part. But one question from that I wanted to ask is, why do you think that the LGBTQ is such a major cultural focus right now? Like, and in the last 5 to 10 years, why do you think it's just now becoming so relevant and important now, whereas 20 years ago?
I think it's just, identity has always been one of man's biggest struggles. Who am I? Right. I think it seems like it's been really sudden because it kind of just crossed that line into sexuality. I think it's actually been a pretty gradual rise in identity struggle.
Yeah.
But since it just crossed the threshold, it seems like it's out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. But, these kinds of things and struggles have been throughout history forever, right?
Yeah.
The Romans, the Greeks, they had same-sex attraction stuff, and, Jesus still had to minister to those people.
Yeah.
So I think now it's kind of starting to rear its head because we are in the final season of the earth, right? Because, we're not going to know the day or the time, but we can know the season. And I think we're definitely approaching that season.
I agree.
So,
yeah. All right. So let's get into our main topic of the day, which is LGBTQ in animation and kids media. So first question, do you think that kids content, specifically animation today, is drastically different than it was 10 years ago? Or do you think it's kind of been just growing gradually in a certain direction?
So for those of you who don't know, I wrote my senior thesis on this topic, and I made a timeline of the progression of these themes in animated shows. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely, you said, has it been gradual?
I said, do you think that it's drastically different and has gone up drastically in the last 10 years? Or do you think it's been like gradual, like kind of
I think it's been gradual.
Okay.
I think,
you don't think there's been like a high spike recently?
Okay. So it kind of did this. It kind of spiked and kind of went back down. Mm-hmm. And funnily enough, the spike was when, Biden was president, right? Because
oh, sure. The guy who made Easter Sunday Trans Day of Visibility.
Yep. So so in the timeline, 2018 is where the first show introduced a same-sex couple. Do you have a guess what that show is?
The Loud House?
No. So do you know what Avatar: The Last Airbender is?
Yeah.
It was a spin-off of that show called The Legend of Korra that released around, I think it was actually You know what? 2018 was where the spike started. I mixed myself up.
Did that come out before or
2013.
after Loud House?
Before.
Okay.
Before. This was like 2013.
Okay.
So that was the first show to have a same-sex couple in children's animation.
Okay.
As you go along, Gravity Falls came out 2013. That featured a same-sex couple, which
Yeah.
actually weren't originally intended to be that way. They were supposed to be best friends, and then of course fandom being fandom was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, they're gay, and Alex was like, okay, sure, just for representation.
Yeah.
But so it progressed 2013 kind of like this. 2018 is when it went and then it kind of gradually went back down again, right?
Yeah.
So 2018 was when oh goodness, 2018 was when I call it the triple threat of failing Disney films. So Turning Red, Strange World, and Lightyear.
I've watched all of those.
And they all suck, right?
I liked the premise of Lightyear. I liked the idea of what they did. I did not like the whole, especially since she had a freaking kid.
Mhm.
That was ridiculous. And then Turning Red, my brother enjoyed that movie a lot more than I did. And then Strange World was kind of like mid. I would give Lightyear, without the LGBTQ content, I would give it a 7 out of 10. With the LGBTQ content, I'd give it a 4 or 5. For Strange World, I'd give it just a 6, straight in the middle. And then Turning Red, I give it, again, without the LGBTQ content, a 7, with like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think what I more meant was like financially how they did, like
Yeah.
whether or not it's a good movie. Financially, they
Box
flopped.
office did. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Box
Box office wise, they sucked.
Yeah, that's more what I meant.
Okay.
It's the go woke go broke kind of thing.
Yeah.
That kind of happened, and then now Elio was the first one that made that transition. This wire, dude. Elio was the first one that made that transition, and now we're kind of going back down because
Yeah.
K-pop Demon Hunters came out that didn't have any sort of agenda in it. It was a really
Nope.
good film.
Yeah.
The new Spider-Verse movie is coming out. I don't think there's anything planned in that one either. So
Nope.
we're kind of going back down. It's still going to be there, but I think I'm scared that not scared, more like concerned that if after, this next election, if the Democrat Party is put back in power,
Yeah.
it's going to spike again.
I
And I think it's going to fluctuate.
Especially since the Democratic nominee is pretty much almost guaranteed to be Gavin Newsom. And if you don't know who Gavin Newsom is, he's the governor of California.
Okay.
And he has openly advocated for not just LGBTQ transgender rights. He has advocated for trans kids. He's like, I support trans kids, and I want to see. He literally said, I want to see more trans kids.
I believe that.
That's who the primary Democratic candidate is going to be for,
Right.
because his last term as governor, he can't be governor anymore
Right.
after this year.
Yeah, so definitely
if he gets elected,
you're going to see another spike, definitely.
okay. So going back in, do you think that these themes are specifically being targeted at younger and younger ages in animation on purpose, or do you think it's just how the ball rolls?
It's for sure on purpose. Legend of Korra was a tween kind of young adult show, right? It had
Yeah.
mature themes. It wasn't targeted at young kids. You then flip the coin to Muppet Babies, the newer one.
Yeah.
That was targeted at more kindergarten.
Yeah.
Maybe 6 through 8, maybe.
I will say
4 through
I've
8.
never watched the Muppets in my life except for the new one that Disney Plus put out with Sabrina Carpenter, because I'm a huge Sabrina Carpenter
That
fan.
one was good though.
So I did watch
Kermit's
that.
voice wasn't as good. I feel like I could do a better Kermit voice, but whatever.
Oh, I forgot you do animation voices. How about you show the audience animation voices you
Well, I could just do a Kermit the Frog here with another episode of the Muppet Show. Today I'm my special guest, Mr. Josh Cook.
But yeah. No, yeah. So I did watch that, but other than that, I've never watched the Muppets.
Okay, so and then Muppet Babies, right? They had I laugh thinking about it. They had an episode where Gonzo dresses up as a princess and goes to a ball, and the whole episode they're referring to Gonzo as a they them, and it's hard to pick up on because it's just you don't think.
Yeah.
About it. But and then he comes out in the dress and he's like I was the princess. I'm Gonzarella, and they're like, oh my gosh,
Oh
no
my
way.
God.
And he's like, they're something about pronouns. I don't know, but they made Gonzo
Yeah.
trans. It's so funny because I saw a video of a mom reacting to it, her and her son, and she was like, Gonzo is a heterosexual male who's attracted to chickens.
Oh
It's
my
not
God.
deeper than that.
That's insane.
It's like he's not supposed to be taken so seriously. But and then after that, Blue's Clues, which is a preschool show, very young kids.
I'm an OG. I grew up on Blue's Clues. I love
Same.
Blue. I have not watched it recently. I assume there's a bunch
Good.
of freaking trash in there now.
Yep. But and then that had the whole Pride Parade, and it's yes, definitely intentionally going lower and lower.
Who do you think should decide what kids are exposed to ultimately?
The parents, honestly. Producers, writers, streaming services, whatever. That's one thing. But the fun thing about all this is it can stop influencing kids at the touch of one button, the off button on your remote, or the whatever. Just change the channel, whatever. Because all of that aside, the parents are the gatekeepers of what is entering their children's mind.
Yeah,
it's their responsibility to modulate that, and so they just have to. As a parent, you just got to watch what your kids are watching, really.
Exactly.
That's what I say all the time. Watch what you watch, because you can just easily just disengage from it and, put good television on for them. Not like, the thing that I advocate for is like, I think a lot of Christian families, they'll be like, oh, if it's secular television, it's bad. So you're only watching Veggie Tales.
Yeah, that was kind of the way my mom was for a lot of my childhood. It pissed me off.
Yeah. And that's where it kind of, that's where I'm saying if should be a little more tolerable about shows that still promote like Harry Potter, right? It was initially, scoffed at by Christians of like, oh, it's witchcraft and like all this stuff. But my
mom also believes that.
But
I should have my mom on and do a whole episode of this.
Oh gosh.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. But they ignored the redemptive arc that's in it that reflects Christ. So, moderation is key. Like, obviously, screen time is a thing, but I think overall the parents should be the primary gatekeepers of that.
Do you think that? So you obviously, I agree with you. Parents should be the ones ultimately deciding what their kids watch. Do you think that the government should have any part in regulating and controlling what streaming services can put out as kids content and make available in kids animation, and what they can have and what themes they can have in those? Or do you think that would be overstepping the bounds of prior constraint and censorship?
Should they? Not sure. Do they? Yes. Right?
Yeah.
Like, they're already. So whether the question of should they, obviously there's stuff that shouldn't be in kids' cartoons.
Yeah. Like nudity, sexual content,
which LGBTQ agendas could be classified as sexual content.
True.
Which would be awesome if we could get that in there and just,
But it also has to be classified because I'm assuming most of the stuff you're talking about is rated PG, not G.
Like what?
Because I'm just thinking about animation, like DC's League of Super Pets, Spider-Verse. Stuff like that, they can get a PG rating, but according to like the PG, the only rating that you can't have any sexual content at all in is G. PG, PG-13 are all allow sexual content. It's just a term of how much and what nudity is allowed and not.
Well, I think what I was talking about more about like preschool shows, like Arthur, Blue's Clues,
exactly. Things that are targeted toward people that are under the age of 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's G stuff, but whereas like Legend of Korra, The Loud House, Adventure Time, all that stuff, that's more PG. So it's two different ball fields.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. Last question in this segment. At what point does it stop being just storytelling and inspiration and start like purposely trying to shape people's beliefs? What do you think the line is for that when it comes to LGBTQ content?
It's very easy to pick up on. It's very easy to pick up on because let's say, there's okay, for example, the Pride Parade and Blue's Clues, right?
Yeah.
There is a verse in the song that is being sung by a drag queen that says, come join the fun. And at first glance, it's like, oh, it's just a dumb lyric, whatever. But it's a command. Come join the fun, right? Whereas, no one ever on Bluey looks into the camera and is just like, respect your parents, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
It's all, but honestly, I do think that I have respect, and I'm glad because I feel like to me, it's kind of like I want to know where I stand with people, and I want to know, like, I don't want to have my kid be watching something that has like underlying messages like that's like psychological. If a show's gonna have the LGBTQ content in it, I want to just come out and say it because I want to be able to avoid that, because I feel like it's worse when. And I'm gonna go into a different little topic. I'm gonna go into music real quick because it is very strategical. Do you know who Sam Smith is?
No idea.
Okay, so Sam Smith is. Have you ever heard the song Unholy?
No.
Mommy don't know, daddy's getting hot.
I have zero pop culture knowledge.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Well, you love Taylor Swift.
Well, love is a strong word.
We'll get into that later. No, so Sam Smith, he made a song with Kim Petras, who, fun fact, Kim Petras is the youngest person ever to have a transgender surgery at 16 in Germany. Germany's also the people that started that. So, and she also became the first trans woman to win a Grammy when they won the Grammy for Best Pop Song. The entire song, the entire theme of the song, the chorus is "Mommy don't know, Daddy's getting hot at the body shop doing something unholy." And if you watch the music video, it's essentially this guy who drops his wife off at home, goes to this body shop, but upstairs it's basically, have you ever heard of Eyes Wide Shut? The Eyes Wide Shut parties in Hollywood, which is basically just like basically everything, like basically people having sex in a room and all this like disgusting. So basically it's that's the entire song. And then Kim Petras, who is man trans to woman, she comes in, he's wearing a devil horns hat the entire time. Every single person in the entire cast of the music video is male, but it looks like they're all females and all are in like corset, but and I guarantee you he did this on purpose. Every single one of his songs he has others. He did an entire tour on this, and every single one of his songs he purposely does not use any curse words. He doesn't use anything that would make the song labeled E. So unholy, and it's like they're all labeled as clean songs. So if your kid, even if your kid's on Amazon Kids or whatever, they even made a Kids Bop. There is a Kids Bop version of unholy.
That's disgusting.
And the issue with it is that they purposely do the content in such a way to where they get the rating they want, so they can get that message out to people who are listening. And it was the #1 trending TikTok song.
Yeah.
And like, in me, like, if I'm being completely honest with you, I don't really have an issue with the song personally. I think it's a bop. It's very well musically produced. I don't agree with the messaging in it. I think the music video is disgusting. I think the way he performs it is disgusting. But it's definitely not something that you want a kid listening to. But parents who think that just by turning this explicit filter on their kids' music is going to filter everything, artists can give whatever message they want. If they don't use any of the 20 flagged words, then, like WAP, there's a clean version of Cardi B's WAP.
I mean, that's where you just gotta, back to the parents being the gatekeepers. You can't just expect, like, there's a way around everything. No filter is going to be perfect.
No.
So, that's just the parents. Like, go over to your kid, like, hey, what you listening to? Don't just give them that and say go crazy.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to be on there.
Yeah. I agree with that. Okay, so next segment, now we're going to get into a topic that I like to call the disagreement. So this is something that I just started with this episode. I didn't do it in the last episode, which, if you guys didn't know, the last episode was the first one, so this is the second episode. Thank you guys for coming back. So I've added this segment that I'm going to have in all the episodes. It's called the disagreement. So basically, what's a belief that you have just in general, doesn't have to be related to this topic, just a belief that you have in general that you would say most people, even people on your side of the aisle, politically or spiritually, would disagree with, and why do you believe that?
So, and keep in mind, I'm a verbal processor, so I don't know if I technically agree with what I'm saying right now, so just keep that in mind.
All right.
However, this is just my belief right now. I'm open to being corrected completely. I don't know if this is biblical at all, but for me, something that I've been thinking about lately is in especially chapel, that's kind of our church service here at ORU. When people are speaking in tongues loudly around me, it's very distracting, and it takes away from my time with the Lord. So something that I've been thinking about is that okay to be publicly, especially when there's no one translating the tongues? I feel like it's just not appropriate in that setting. And like, I'm not saying that people should... I
actually completely agree with you.
Okay. And I'm not saying people should limit their connection with God.
Yeah.
But I think they should keep in mind that there are other people worshiping. And like, I don't want to sound like a stickler and be like, no. Since like, keep your worship down and like, whatever. But I think you got to be careful about, like, you can speak in tongues a little quieter.
Yeah.
So
believe it or not, this is a belief a lot of people, I've met a lot of people with this, and again, my mom would be another person that would disagree with this, because she's a very big speaker in tongues. She'll do it during service and stuff. No offense to you, Mom, if you're watching the podcast. But no, so I would say I completely agree with you. I would say during the revival, especially, again, no offense to the guy that looked like Jesus. I forget what your name was. But when he had like the whole, like basically all except for 20 minutes of that time was just all of that. And I'm like, people are
different. That's a little different for me, because that was a setting where we were supposed to be loud. So in that setting, I was okay with it. I'm simply saying it's all about reading the room. So if it's a
Exactly.
quiet time with the Lord and someone's like yelling in tongues, right? It's just
Yeah, I agree.
That's all I'm saying.
So what would you say to what would you say to somebody who disagrees with you on that? What like how would you explain your perspective to them, or trying to like if you were trying to get people to understand where you're coming from on this and maybe try and get some change done, how would you explain that to somebody who disagrees with you?
I just say, imagine if you were, trying in a library reading a book, and I came by and started playing a guitar very loudly, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing something that I'm passionate about. You're doing something that you're passionate about. However, it's in a library. Libraries for reading, not playing guitar.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So, it's not about I shouldn't play guitar. It's about where should I play guitar.
Exactly.
So that's what I'd say.
All right. So then this next segment, I call it circling back. So this is basically after we kind of discussed the main topic of what we're going to discuss. Obviously, the podcast is called Truth Uncensored, where bold conversations meet Christ-centered truths. This is kind of like, huh?
I said trademark.
Exactly. 2025 copyright. I'm just kidding. But no. So this is basically how because some discussions are biblical, some discussions are just societal. So I try and bring everything back to, obviously I have a Christian perspective. Not all of my guests will. So for you as a Christian, how do you think Christians should approach the issue of LGBTQ content in animation and kids media?
So there's different ways that different people in different walks of life should approach it. So as the parents, we should be, I'm not a parent, but I will be when it's a parent. I will be, that was a lame joke, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I'll be modulating what the kids are watching, teaching them discernment, teaching them Christian values, and letting them eventually make those decisions once I no longer have influence over them. As kids, even practicing that discernment now as a child, and not as like a young child, because young children don't even know what they want off the menu at McDonald's, much less what gender they want. So
and that's the idiocracy of it all.
Yes. And so as children, just respect, being raised in such a way that you respect your parents, and as like young children, like 1 through 5, they can't really do much, but past that age, just learning discernment, practicing it now. As people, for me, who are doing something about it, like I'm choosing to fight back against this, going into those places where darkness is prevalent and just being a light there, just influencing things for the better. And, I think God will always provide a way for you to do what you want to do without stepping on other people's toes. Like, if you want to do something and people turn you away because of it, I think you'll always, if that's what you're called to do, you'll always provide a way for you to do that. It's just, our job is to trust, and it's to trust that God has a plan.
Yeah.
And so I think just fighting back against it by watching what we watch, and, just walking the walk of Christ, and just going into those places with those values, loving the people, hating the sin, and just being able to read the room on those things.
Absolutely. So how do you engage with culture, engage with media, engage with movies, stuff like this, without compromising your beliefs?
So I have what I like to call the 3-strike method. I think that if something is represented in a film or piece of media more than 3 times, it's an agenda. So, for example, if I'm watching something and there's, a couple in the background, a gay couple, I'm like, okay, all right. It's like, I don't agree with that, but I'm not going to let it compromise my experience of the story. Yeah. However, if that bleeds into the story and that's the story they're telling, then I'm not going to watch it, because that's compromising my beliefs, right? There's no reason for me to be engaging in a story that is unbiblical. So like in the story of what's a good example? I
mean, we could do Loud House, because I'm
gonna do Adventure Time.
Okay.
Adventure Time. There's a couple, there's a lesbian couple that ends up together in the end of the story. That narrative slowly took over the whole point of the show. Yeah. Adventure Time started out as a story about a post-apocalyptic world. For those of you who don't know, I'm sorry, spoilers. Where
spoiler alert, if you don't want any spoilers about Adventure Time,
pause it if you're in the middle of Adventure Time. Fantastic show, most of it. Starts out as a story about a young boy and his dog, and it's this mutated world from the results of a nuclear fallout. And it's like all like there's Candy Kingdom and snow and the Ice King and all that stuff. Yeah. And then the story is supposed to be about Adventure Time. And it turned into lesbian time because then this one couple took over the story, and that was the main point of the finale. That was the main point of
Yeah.
like it just took over.
Mhm.
And so I had to stop watching it because I was just like, I'm not comfortable with how much this is influencing the show.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right, and then lastly, last question on this segment, which is probably going to be our last segment. Do you think that related to the topic of LGBTQ, you can even go into animation stuff like that? Do you think Christians today are too passive on this topic or too aggressive on this topic? In your opinion,
You and these blanket statements, man.
It's
Some Christians are more aggressive, some are more passive.
I would say for the most part. What do you think the majority is? Do you think the majority of Christians are too passive, kind of just let things go, or do you think they're too aggressive in the other direction?
Probably too passive.
Okay.
For the most part, if you're taking it as a whole percentage-wise.
All right. So one of the last things I always do, I do this at the end of every show. So you remember at the beginning, I asked you a bunch of rapid fire questions, yes or no. So now I call this the one word association game. So I try to like theme it to whatever we're doing. So we're talking about LGBTQ. So all of these people have some connection to LGBTQ, whether it's good or bad, support or don't support. And I'm just going to say a name. And you said you're not super good with pop culture. So if you don't know who it is, you can just say pass. Right. But I'm going to say a name, and I just want you to use one word to describe that person, or use whatever, either the first word that comes to your mind, or just one word that you would use to describe that person.
Oh, dear.
So first one's going to be Elton John.
Inspiring.
Ellen DeGeneres.
Hilarious.
RuPaul.
Confused.
Lil Nas X.
Don't know who that is.
Sam Smith.
Don't know who that is.
Neil Patrick Harris.
No clue.
Taylor Swift.
Overrated.
Donald Trump.
Iconic. Whether that be a good thing or a bad thing.
Elon Musk.
Intellectual.
Charlie Kirk.
Respected.
Nick Fuentes.
Wild card. That's 2 words, but
Jesus Christ.
love.
All right. This last one is kind of a spin-off because I want to get your perspective. So this last one, you don't have to use one word, it's probably to be a discussion, but do you know who Tim Cook is?
No.
So Tim Cook is the CEO of Apple. He took over for Steve Jobs, became the CEO of Apple.
Okay.
He was raised Baptist, Baptist, currently identifies as Baptist, practices his faith.
Okay.
Openly gay, came out as gay in, I think, 2015.
Okay.
So, and he says for him, it's about respect and love and accepting a community that is rejected by so many people, including Christians. So what do you think of him as a self-described Baptist, baptized believer in Christ, but is also openly gay?
I mean, I'd say he's pretty confused. I mean, the thing about the Baptist faith is, you know, I respect it for a lot of reasons, but ultimately it's very focused on the don't do this, and less focused on the do this, right?
Yeah.
And so I can get why someone from that background would be more inclined to, you know, fall into, you know, because the thing about, you know, Baptists is they know a lot of things that aren't true, but they know a lot of things to be untrue, but they don't know a lot of things to be true.
Yeah.
So I think when you're not coming from a background of truth, and that having the main influence, it's easy to become confused.
Yeah.
So obviously I don't support him being gay. So like what I'd say about him is I think he's just, you know, he is a child of God, and he's created just like all of us. I just think he's a little confused.
Yeah, I would agree. All right. Well, in closing, are there any final thoughts that you would like to leave the viewers with?
Yes. So there was something I want to talk about that I didn't really get around to. It's really about, you know, in addition to telling kids what they should do, there's also, you know, telling them certain viewpoints that they should have. And really the two things that the agenda is trying to get kids to be is ill-informed and angry. I think I mentioned that earlier. But for example, a lot of the arguments for trans rights for children, for example, are so illogical. So for instance, they'll say, you know, Barbie dolls, monster trucks, they're all toys. You can play with whatever you want.
Yeah.
Right? But if there's a little boy playing with Barbies, oh, little Johnny, you're a girl stuck in a boy's body, right?
Exactly.
So
it goes from being toys,
doesn't make sense.
which is fine, to being sexual. Yep.
They want to have their cake and eat it too. And there was something else too. My mind completely blanked. But it's just that they want them to be ill-informed, illogical,
Yeah.
and angry, because then they'll get it to, like, there's these little I'm laughing because I'm laughing at purely the bad writing. There are these little clips that Cartoon Network put out. Have you heard of Steven Universe?
Yeah, I love that. Love that show.
One of the queerest shows on television.
True.
Before freaking She-Ra and the Princess of Power.
I did not like that one, but I will say Steven Universe, I did enjoy that one. Okay. I did not enjoy that, but I enjoyed the show.
Steven Universe started out good, but the point is they released these clips about racism, and one of them was and it's so manipulative, you almost gotta respect it. They had this playground scene, and there was a little white boy and a little African American boy, and they were playing, and randomly one of the kids, for no reason, was like, we should get married. And then, like, this bully shows up and he's like, you can't get married. Black people can't marry white people. Do you know what that did? It did three things. It normalized gay marriage because it put it out there and then didn't say anything about it. It took the focus onto racism.
Yeah.
And it's
genius.
Yeah, right. There was a third reason that escapes me, but it's just because then, the little tag on at the end, like, she looks right in the camera and she's like, don't defy it or something like that.
Yeah.
Be anti-racist. And the whole thing about, racism is racism ends when we stop talking about it.
Exactly.
Like, I used to, even, I said that he was African American for the purpose of the story, but I try to be careful when I'm telling someone about someone. I don't say this black guy or this Indian guy. I just say this guy, because, that shouldn't have an influence over, how I'm classifying this person. It's just like, you're a fellow man. That's all that should matter, really, unless it has an importance to the story. It's just
I can see that.
People. So, but back to the LGBTQ side of things, they really just want to manipulate kids to be ill-informed and it's all about taking up a burden that's not theirs. It's all about jumping on the bandwagon of, let me get on the side of something, because people, it goes back to cancel culture. People are just so ready to be angry about something.
And then they just want adults to sit down and shut up.
Adults?
Like parents.
Oh.
They call the only thing, they want kids to be influenced by media. They want kids to.
Oh, I see.
They want parents. The parents are gay. That's why. Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes
They
back
just want adults to sit down and shut up.
to objective truth too. Like, what do you, the child, think?
Exactly.
And it's like, you, the child, don't know what you want from McDonald's. Like I said earlier, so they just can't. They shouldn't be expected to make decisions about their gender identity.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that's the final thing that I just wanted to mention was that the main goal of the agenda is the sexualization of children, the numbing of children's intellect, and the positioning of getting them to jump on a bandwagon and be angry about something.
All right, so last thing I want to ask you, I ask this to everybody at the end of every podcast. If you were, again, I'm not speaking this over you, this is just in general, if you were to die tomorrow, or if all this were to go away, and this podcast was the last thing anybody ever heard you say, what message, if you could leave one final message, this is the last thing anybody's going to hear you say, what would your message be?
I would say, be confident in your calling, and don't, trust God that he's going to take care of it. Don't feel like you're going to miss your chance. If there is a calling on your heart, then God will see you through it, as long as it's dedicated to him. And so be confident in your calling, and just trust God with it. Not that you should just be like, Jesus, take the wheel, but dedicate it to.
Yeah.
So not that God should be steering the car, but let the car be owned by God.
Amen. Well, Corbin, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. I thank you for your time and perspective. I hope we can do this again sometime.
Of course.
To you guys out there watching, if this episode challenged you, encouraged you, or made you feel differently, leave a review, share the podcast, send it to somebody who you think needs to hear it, and just always remember, truth matters, discipline matters, faith matters, and your life has a purpose. I'm Josh Cook, and this is Truth Uncensored. We'll see you in the next episode.